Get off the sidelines. Time to get in the game.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Triple Play Performance Podcast. This is Dr. Mike, and I am going to answer some questions today. Hopefully the last couple episodes were helpful for you. I answered a bunch of different questions. But today, these are another batch of some popular questions that you guys have been asking me. So let me just jump right into it. The first question here is, do I think that chiropractic and acupuncture can help with fertility? Well, that's an interesting question. Not a very common question that I get. I've treated a bunch of patients that have had fertility issues, and a lot of them have had really good success, and there's a lot of babies now. You know, what's a funny thing is when patients, I treat them and they've been having issues conceiving, and then they come back and then they say, hey, they tell their friends, they're like, Dr. Mike got us pregnant. You know, it's like the way that it comes out just doesn't sound right? I just laugh all the time when I hear that. So if you guys use this advice and then you do conceive, do not say that Dr. Mike got you pregnant. That just doesn't come off right. Anyways, back to the question is, do I think that chiropractic and acupuncture can help with fertility? And the answer is yes, but there's a caveat to that. A lot of people think that, you know, I can just go and get adjusted or just use acupuncture and then miraculously fertility will increase. Now, there's specific reasons that it occurs, and one of the big reasons is because of stress. And you know, this is going to answer us a couple of the other questions that people have talking about stress and the effects of stress upon your body. And you guys can go and look at some of the videos that I've put out that I talk about stress. But when the body is underneath stress, there's three things that happens, or the three systems that basically don't work effectively. One is your reproductive system, second one is your digestive system, and the third one is your immune system. Because if you look at it, if you're running away from a tiger, the last thing that you need to be doing is eating food, making a baby, and fighting off a cold. So your body takes the energy that it uses for those systems and then reestablishes or redistributes that to your brain and the muscles. So your heart starts pumping more blood to get the blood flow to your brain, and then you get tighter muscles. That's also one of the reasons why people are experiencing stress or anxiety, their arms and legs feel tingly, is because they're actually losing circulation to the limbs, and it's all going centralized. So here's what happens with a chiropractic adjustment. A chiropractic adjustment, if done correctly, will decrease the stress response and help the nervous system to get normalized and get back to homeostasis. And in this process, the stress response, is no longer active. So now the body can utilize the energy instead of going to the brain and to the muscles, it will utilize the energy back towards digestion, hormones, reproductive hormones, and also your immune system. So did the chiropractic adjustment help with fertility, or did it decrease the stress response or basically shut off the stress response that's going on in your body, the alarm response, and then the body helped to rebalance? Well, basically a lot of people think that chiropractic adjustments or something like that, what it does is you do something and then it cures, an ailment. And in actuality, it doesn't do anything of that. All it does is remove an interference so that the body can heal itself. Now, if an ailment goes away, it's not because of the adjustment that was delivered. Contrary to what a lot of chiropractors will say, it's not the case. You're normalizing the body's neurological functioning. So if you look back and into the annals of chiropractic, they always talk about that the subluxation is the cause of disease. And I've done a few podcast episodes on that, stating how you look at the entire body. And if there's a subluxation that's impeding optimal neurological functioning, then you won't have optimal organ functioning. And when that occurs, then you get all kinds of dysfunction and disease. So when you remove the subluxation, the body can now function how it's supposed to. So it can improve digestion. It can normalize hormones, takes the stress off the immune system, so the immune system can get back to normal instead of it being suppressed. So there's a lot of controversy when people looking at chiropractic and saying that all it does is it helps neck pain and low back pain. And I've seen so many cases where things were helped with a chiropractic adjustment. And a lot of people think that a chiropractic adjustment is a simple thing, and it's not. Trust me, go out there and ask one of your friends to go and try and adjust your neck. It's an art and it's a skill. And not all adjustments are delivered the same. Trust me, I've been adjusted by many people, and no two adjustments or no two doctors will adjust exactly the same. So hope that answers that question. Next question is, what are my thoughts on colloidal silver as a daily supplement? Now, a lot of people, if you don't know what colloidal silver is, you guys can go and look it up. But basically, it's touted as being like an antibacterial, antiviral, antimicrobial. People take it to boost their immune system and keep them from getting sick. It's been used for decades now and very successful. I've used it a bunch of times. You may have seen cases where people have taken it for longer periods of time and may have actually turned blue. So the answer to that is, what are my thoughts on colloidal silver as a daily supplement? Well, colloidal silver is not an essential nutrient. So in the sense of supplementation, you don't need it. But in the sense of, are you trying to protect or help enhance your immune system? I don't necessarily agree. I look at colloidal silver as more of a therapeutic intervention rather than a supplement. So, when I use the word supplement, I'm looking at something that's essential to function in your body. A therapeutic agent like colloidal silver is something that you use on occasion if you need it to aid your body into clearing out an infection or boosting function in for a short period of time. So as far as it using as a daily supplement, no, I don't agree with that. All right, next question. What are my thoughts on adaptogenics to heal adrenal issues? Well, this is a very common question that I get, and it's a very common issue that's talked about and marketed in the natural health communities. I see all these blog posts and I see all these health gurus talking about adrenal fatigue and heal your adrenal fatigue. And so many people are coming into my office already talking about, I have adrenal fatigue and I'm taking all these adaptogens to help with that. And the problem is that a lot of it isn't helping. And there's a misnomer that's been propagated about adrenal fatigue. And I mean, I'm just as guilty as that until, I started diving in and looking at the research. And we need to go back and start looking at, well, how did all of this start? Well, it started with the research of Hans Selye when he looked at the physiological effects of stress. And, if FEMA was around when he was doing his experiments, he would have got thrown in jail, or some type of Twitter campaign would have gone against Hans Selye, because this guy would basically, short of torturing a lab rat, that's the kind of stuff that he did basically to induce a stress response. He dunked them in cold water, burned them, starved them, put them in extreme conditions to see how the body would respond to those types of extraneous amounts of stress. And then what he did is, through different cycles of the stress response, he would dissect the rat and then look at the adrenal glands. And then he noticed the specific pattern that was occurring. And then through this experiment, he coined the term general adaptation syndrome, where he saw that there were a couple different stages of the general adaptation syndrome, where you had enlargement and then you had sustained growth, and then it went to a state of where the organ basically started shrinking and not functioning properly. And this is where the idea of adrenal fatigue came into play. Now, when you talk about adrenal fatigue or any type of adrenal issues with an allopathic practitioner, a medical doctor, they don't register what you're talking about. Because whenever you talk about the adrenals, it's being looked at from a standpoint of pathology, either having hyperadrenia or hypoadrenia. One is called Addison's disease, the other one is Cushing's disease. Then the functional medicine community came in and says, no, there are other stages before Addison's and Cushing's disease. You have these different stages of adrenal fatigue that's happening. And this was to account for why so many people are suffering from chronic fatigue issues or fibromyalgia. Somebody needed to point the finger at somebody, and that was the adrenals. And a lot of times, this is not the case. What I've seen in clinical practice is that the majority of our patients that come in with self-diagnosing with adrenal fatigue has nothing to do, or nothing close, I should say, nothing close to what they think and what they've been told about adrenal fatigue. Contrary to that, what's happening is that they're going through what's called a hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis dysfunction. It's an interplay between the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenals, and how they talk to each other. So what's supposed to happen is that you observe a stressful event, and the hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland, hey, there's something going on. We need to secrete adrenal corticotrophin hormone, ACTH. And ACTH goes down to the adrenal glands and tells the adrenal glands, hey, you need to be secreting a stress hormone. We are encountering a stressful event. Then what's supposed to happen is that if the adrenals make enough of the stress hormone, then it kicks back to the brain and says, we don't need to produce, or you don't need to tell me to produce any more of the stress hormone, and it's supposed to shut off. Now, typically what happens to most people is that the communication between the three glands, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal, starts to get a little bit shaky. And the adrenal glands either don't produce enough, or they produce too many hormones, or the pituitary gland is not producing enough stimulating hormone. That's usually what happens in the case. Now, over a long period of time, you let a highly stressful event occur. What then happens is that the excess amount of hormones being produced, like cortisol, will go back and actually cause damage to the brain, and it'll cause damage to the HPA axis. So you get an aberrant stress response. So instead of your body being able to respond to a stressful event without being negatively affected, anytime a stressful event happens, your body cannot respond to the stressful event. Therefore, you feel that fatigue, or you feel that drain in your body because you needed to put out an extra amount of energy just to deal with that stressful event. This is what a lot of people deem as adrenal fatigue. Now, here comes adaptogens. Adaptogens are great. You got stuff like rhodiola, ashwagandha. Now, what the adaptogen is if, say, we're talking about the adrenals. If the adrenal's in a state of hypoadrenia, then it'll boost it back up. If it's in a state of hyperadrenia, it'll bring it back down. Basically trying to keep everything level. The real reason why it even works that way. You get a little bit more esoteric when I start talking about this, but it's basically you are getting the effects of sunlight. So basically when you're eating stuff like ashwagandha, rhodiola, you are getting a concentrated form of sunlight, to put it in a simple terms. Because when you look at the HPA axis, it's under control from this thing called the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And suprachiasmatic nucleus is what tells your body it's daytime or nighttime, and the amount of light and the type of light that's getting stimulated in your body. And according to the light is what happens in your body, the hormones that's happening in your body. So during the morning time, you are supposed to have a different hormonal profile than the evening time. Okay, so in the morning, predominantly you have a lot of cortisol. Towards the evening, you're supposed to predominantly have a lot of melatonin. And this goes according to the day and night cycles. Now, if you have highly stressful events and that rhythm is off, what we call your circadian rhythm, then you get this mismatch of information going into the body. So you get a stressful event, and then the body has been going haywire and not knowing the difference between day and night, or it's been in day too long, not enough night. Then what happens is that your body slowly is unable to respond. This is a very long answer to this question, but it's something that I need a lot of people to understand, because people start talking about adrenal fatigue and adrenal issues, and then all they do is they do patchwork stuff. They taking all these adaptogenics and glandulars. Well, and that has a place, by the way. It has its place, but it's not doing anything specific to get to the root of the problem. And that's why I see a lot of patients come in and they've been on these adaptogens for years. And when they get off of the adaptogens, they feel worse. It's because they didn't do anything to actually get to the root cause of the problem. And then once we start addressing the root cause of the problem, they don't necessarily have to go on the adaptogens anymore. So adaptogens, I believe, should be used for a short-term use. Maybe you're going through a stressful event right now, and adaptogen will actually help curb that stressful response. But as far as a long-term solution, no, you got to get back and look at, well, what in your body is still triggering that stressful response, and how do we get back to normal? And where I start every single patient is by balancing out circadian rhythms. That's an answer to that. And that is also the answer to this other question of the 3 p.m. crash happens every day. That has to do with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis and it being out of balance. So your body has a difficult time and dealing with stress, and it doesn't know what time of day it is. So your circadian rhythms are all off. So that answers that question. Along with, there's another one. I'm reading through my list here. There's another one of chronic pain. Adrenal issues, the 3 p.m. crash, and chronic pain all lie in the same boat of the HPA axis being all wacko. All right, guys, that's pretty much what I got for this episode of answering some of your questions. Keep those questions coming, guys. I love all these questions, and I want to make sure that I'm delivering the content that you guys want to hear. So you guys asking me the questions really makes you part of this podcast. And if you want to ask any questions, one of the easiest ways to do it is going on my Instagram at tripleplaydocs. So you find me on Instagram if you're not already following me. If you are, all you got to do is message me there and ask me a question and say, hey doc, can you answer this on the next Q&A podcast? And then I'll make note of that, and then I'll answer it on the next Q&A podcast. But I thank you guys for listening in. Now, if you guys have any interest in working with me, I highly recommend, you doing this. As far as just, what we want to do is set up a free consultation. What I offer anybody is, if you're lost, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you're lost on your health journey, you just need help, set up a free 20-minute consultation with me, and I'll sit down with you and look at what's going on. And then we can kind of I can kind of show you exactly what it is I do to help patients, and if it's a fit for you, and if you're fit for me. And then from there, I can show you the different programs that I would recommend for you, which would best help you to get the result that you want. So all you got to do is go to www.tripleplayperformance.co/online consulting. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. But you guys got the link there. And you guys are going to see a webinar replay. And the webinar replay goes over the 3 biggest mistakes that I see patients making. And I'd recommend that you guys watch that webinar. It's chock full of information, but it'll also give you a smaller glimpse of what I do and how I coach, our Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Connect with me on Instagram at tripleplaydoc. Stay tuned for more episodes. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell the entire world. Till the next episode,